at 1,000 subscribers, I like dropped out and quit my job. I'm in the red at 1,000 subscribers. There was a point last year where I was like, okay, I have all these channels doing good, stable. This could all just disappear.
When he was just a teenager, Christian Villanueva dropped out of community college to do YouTube, even though he had just 1,000 subscribers. It was a huge risk, but it paid off. And now he's one of the top voices in the fashion community. His channel, Frugal Aesthetic, has over 1 million followers. And Christian now has also founded a fashion company because he's ready to move beyond YouTube. Today, Christian shares his story and his entrepreneurial journey. I'm Eric, co-founder of Karat. We help creators with their finances. And join us today with Christian Villanueva. I'm here today with a special guest. You might know him as YouTuber Frugal Aesthetic, but I want to talk to you about the man behind the content. This is Christian. Not only has he been doing YouTube since 2016,
Wow.
community college, he decided, yo, I can't with this.
No.
I'm going to do a different path in life, became a creator. Not only is his content really good, if you want to figure out how to look good, he's also a consummate businessman with multiple podcast shows. This man, he has set up his own manager. He has a year's worth of ad inventory purchased right out the gate. He's got his accountant hooked up.
I don't know how he knows this.
The creative and the business side. It's almost like we were just talking about this before the pod started.
Wow. That would have been crazy if like I never told you about that and you introduced me as that. And then like, I'm just like, how does he know?
So the whole premise behind what we're doing today is for the viewers to get to know a little bit more about your story beyond just what you do on your YouTube channel. Yeah.
It's true. Yeah. I feel like I really love talking about stuff.
Yeah.
And a lot of the podcasts that I get invited on are fashion podcasts.
Yeah.
And I love not talking about fashion on a fashion podcast. But now that you're asking me about myself, it would be funny if I started talking about
I didn't know this being a fashion podcast.
It would be funny. But so what do you want to know? Like,
I think for me, the very start is 2016. You're in community college. How did you end up there? And what's the inspiration to start going to YouTube?
I ended up in community college because I didn't have a choice, you know, didn't qualify for the big universities. I also was just like trying to figure myself out. I feel like community college is like a safer, you have less stake in the game as opposed to I'm going to go to a 4-year and not like it. The first semester of community college, I did really good, surprisingly. The last thing I turned in, I like printed a paper and turned it in. I remember walking to my car in the parking lot, finished all my classes. During that walk, I like made the mental decision of like, yeah, I'm not going to finish doing all of this for 4 years, you know, after the first semester. And I feel like that was kind of my sign to figure something out over the summer. You know, like I have all this time now to like go and like try things out or brainstorm and figure something out that's not just, I'm going to default to going to college because obviously that's not where my head was at. And I think there was a point where I remember watching, you remember JK News?
Yeah, of course.
I was watching an episode of JK News and I remember the episode too. It was the top 10 most paid YouTubers at the time. And like the episode went as the title like described, but at the end they were like, if you want to make money being a YouTuber, we're starting this course called Jump Cut with our friends Kong and Jesse from Simple
Pickup crew.
Yeah. And I remember thinking like, that's kind of a funny, like that's a wild out there idea that I think would be really funny really goofy of me if I pursued, you know? And so then I remember just like clicking on it and kind of like wondering like what this was all about. And just the brief made it seem so doable. Funny enough, when you get into the game, you realize like, oh my God, like there's so much.
Oh, it's actually really hard to be a successful creator.
It's such a treadmill.
Yeah.
I think it was like, at the time, it was like $10 a month or something like that. I watched like all the videos in like a day. And it just all kind of came to life in the moment. I was like, fashion is the only thing I feel like I can talk about forever.
Wow.
At the time, I was so into it because it was just such a big part of like my friend group in fashion or in high school. We like loved sharing like streetwear things. I worked at a retail store. Like I worked at a Tommy Hilfiger. So I was like, you know, ringing clothes up all day.
I cannot picture you, by the way, in Tommy Hilfiger clothes right now.
Dude, I loved wearing, You know, like yacht club stuff?
Yeah, like boat shoes.
Oh my God, I love
So
that.
you were preppy.
I was like,
so
all
you
about
dressed like a white guy.
it. Oh yeah, for sure. It was. You can't explain it any other way. I was for sure dressed like.
And this, by the way, I know you told me before, you grew up in Hawaii.
Yeah.
So this is a Hawaii Tommy Hilfiger show.
Yeah, it was an outlet, Tommy Hilfiger outlet.
Yeah.
And I was like cosplaying as a white guy in Hawaii. You know,
That's a vibe.
it was a good time. When I had to like figure out what kind of content I was gonna make, it ended up being fashion, and I feel like everything kind of just wasn't planned. I didn't really plan what my content was gonna look like or sound like, which is like against everything that you're learning in this jump cut thing anyways. So like everything I've done in life, it was the wrong way. I kind of just figured it out on the fly. And yeah, so if you go look at my content now, it's like evolved since then, but the first videos were just like a slideshow and me talking over it, making jokes, because I didn't have a camera. I didn't like know how to speak to a camera. So I would like just write scripts and freeball it. And that's kind of how everything came about.
I kind of love too that instead of continuing on with traditional education, you dropped out, betting it all on a YouTube course from the Simple Pickup crew.
Dude, don't say it like that. When I look back at it, I would not make that decision. Like if those cards were played now, I would not.
What you're doing today, it's unusual in a good way. And I think to end up in a place this is unusual in a good way, you have to do things that are just unusual. Full stop. Before you know
everyone
they're
has
good.
to be a little crazy.
Yeah.
You got to make some irrational decisions, you know?
And when you were leading up to that point, it sounds like you said you walked out your last semester. You're like, I can't do this anymore. Like, what were you even studying? If you weren't doing that YouTube path, if you hadn't gone quote unquote the wrong path, what would have been the conventionally right one you'd still be on today?
So, I was in community college doing like liberal arts stuff, just like prerequisite classes, because it was my first semester, you know?
Yeah.
But I didn't have the long-term plan, which is the whole point of me wanting to figure it out over the summer, because I never put that much thought into it. I was just there to show up, really. And to answer your question of like, what would I be doing if not for YouTube? In that, you know, that Kanye West speech where he's like at the Grammys and they were like, everyone wanted to know what I would do if I didn't win. I guess we'll never know. That's exactly the mindset I have about what would you be doing if not for YouTube?
Yeah.
I guess we'll never know, Eric.
You mentioned in community college, you didn't have a great sense what the path was.
No.
What about in YouTube? Was it also like, hey, let me try this out and see what happens? Or was this like like I'm going to succeed?
It's the same mentality of, I didn't really have a choice. It has to work out because I'm not doing anything else. I remember there was a point where I hit like 1,000 subscribers, which in the grand scheme of things isn't really, you're not making money doing that at 1,000 subscribers. But the first 0 to 1,000 is pretty hard. Like breaking the barrier from talking to a wall, because when you're putting out content initially, right, you're not really talking to anybody. You're just throwing things out there. Hopefully this like someone will like this video. But when I got to 1,000, it felt real. It started to feel like, oh, people are watching, even though that's not that many people to make a career out of. At 1,000 subscribers, I like dropped out and quit my job.
Wow.
Which is like, again, if I look back at it, why did I do that? But like you were saying, you kind of have to be like irrational. You have to make these weird decisions.
So it reminds me, there's this expression, burning the boats.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Literally that.
When Cortez came to Mexico for the first time, which led to many issues, but we'll leave that alone for now.
Let's pretend like it was a joke.
Yeah.
You know?
And whole thing where he turned and looked at all of his boats and he burned them and he said, you're not getting back to where we came from. The only way to go forward is to start a new life.
We're going to do it. Yeah.
So you quit your job. And what was your job at the time?
At that Tommy Hilfiger.
So this was still at the Tommy Hilfiger. So this is still in Hawaii.
Bro, I burned the boats at 1,000 subscribers.
1,000 subscribers. You're making what, like $2K a year?
I'm losing. I'm in the red at 1,000 subscribers. Opportunity cost wise, spending all this time making videos and I'm getting like 100 views, 200 views a video.
And when you're doing this, your friends, what do they think?
I didn't tell anybody. So that was the thing. It was such a far out idea. Also, you don't want your friends watching your content. That's embarrassing. And it was such a far out thing that I didn't even want to tell my friends because I wanted them to find me after I became successful. Like that was kind of like this mindset where it was like, it wasn't even on a, I'll show them. It was this would be so cool if they randomly found me, which started happening. That's how I didn't tell anyone that's how it actually came about. I remember, even though I dropped out of college, I didn't tell my parents because you can't do that.
Asian parents.
You cannot tell your parents. My dad was in the military for 25 years, like Asian, like my mom graduated from the University of Manila with a bachelor's in chemistry. You know what I mean? Like high expectations for me, which I was not going to meet. So I can't tell them I'm dropping out of college. That's like household, you know what I mean? Like within the home. I'm not going to recover from that. So then I just didn't want to tell them because I was ashamed. And I would go to school though, to like work on videos to pretend like I'm in college. So like I would give my mom like the schedule of classes that I would have taken if I was still in college. And in those time slots where I'm supposed to be in school, I would just go to the library in school and like work on videos so that it seemed like I was in school, you know?
Wow.
Just in case like she came home or something and I was there and it's like, aren't you supposed to be in class? Or like whatever it may be. In that time, like I would still see my friends, you know, because I'm in the library and stuff. And I remember one of my friends like came up to me. He had like a knack of like, why are you like always in the library? You're never in class. I'm like, oh, you know, because I'm just like doing the work and then going to the library. And I didn't really have a good excuse. And I remember there was a time where he like walked up to me and like started playing a video of mine. And he goes, is this you? Is this what you're working on in here all the time? And that was a full circle moment for me. And that was at like 10,000 subscribers.
He found your videos.
Yeah.
He's like, this is what this motherfucker's doing here
in the library
this
every day.
So your friends also thought you were going to school.
Yeah.
Your friends and your family, as far as they know, you are in that library doing schoolwork.
To this day, my parents think that I was in school still that semester. I haven't told them that I was lying the whole time.
Well, they have a really lovely surprise. You just sent them this.
I told my mom after the first year, even though I only did one semester, I was like, after this semester, I'm going to take a gap semester to figure things out. And that's when I like moved out.
I've talked to a lot of parents of YouTubers, and Asian American parents is always the same thing. They never really get it.
No.
And it's insane because you're killing it right now.
You know what though? A universal language I feel is money. So the first paycheck I got from like a brand deal I did with, I forgot the app name. It was like one of the first brand deals I did. Like it wasn't like a physical check, but you know, like the email, like the bank transfer stuff. Like I remember just showing my parents like a receipt of like a check or like a payment I got. And that was when they were like, oh, so you can make a living out of this. And that's when they started like kind of getting off my case about like what I was doing. Cause like they didn't know what I was doing. I just told them like, oh, I'm like doing stuff for Google.
Technically that's true.
Mm-hmm. Like I did media for Google, which is technically not lying.
That is the best way to describe yourself as YouTuber to Asian parents.
I
do media for Google.
Oh my God. Any Asian person or anyone really that like doesn't want to explain this job to their parents, just say you're doing media for Google because you're technically not lying.
Christian's just giving you a whole new way to communicate and
it's
explain.
not lying because you're telling the truth, you know?
What was that first check? Do you remember? How much was it for?
It's $3,000.
Oh, enough that your parents are like, oh,
Yeah. It was $3,000, which was like, I don't know how many hours that is minimum wage. Like, but that's like, you know.
It's a lot of hours.
That's a lot of hours.
I love how we're both Asian and we're just like, we can't do the math here.
Someone do the math.
You can comment. Like, that's like what, like 1,500 hours
I
or
lied
something?
about going to college.
That's so funny. But what also surprises me, so I totally get family. You can't let your family know what you're doing. Mm-hmm. Your friends, though, like, they don't get it.
Well,
or you're just more afraid.
I was afraid. I was shy because how do you explain like, yo, guys, I'm going to go do YouTube now. And I come from a friend group where we're going to bully each other. You know
You're
what I
going to
mean?
roast each other.
Oh, dude, we, to this day, still hold, like, we still make fun of each other in the same way. Like, I'm going to my friend's bachelor party in Vegas in September. And, like, we created a group chat to, like, plan everything. And it's, like, high school again. Wow. Like, the way we're talking and, like, oh, my God, I can't wait to do this. Like, and it's, like, the same memes over and over from like same inside jokes. It was very hostile, but like, you know, it was a fun, like, you can tell everyone like loves each other, but you will not hear the end of it about anything, you know? So I didn't have it in me to share them the whole YouTube part, because I was just scared of how they were gonna like make fun of me. But yeah, so there was a part that I was scared. It was also just like, I feel like if I didn't talk about it and I let success do the talking, it was that to me seemed like the better way to go about it.
Kind of feels like a big energy move.
Yeah,
Like,
it
I'll
was.
let the YouTube algorithm show you what I'm doing.
Yeah, it was. I'm gonna hold myself accountable and just like let the success do the talking instead of just telling them. You know.
So your family, look, it's just something they're not going to quite understand. Your friends, it's, hey, I want my success to do the talking. I know they're going to roast me.
Yeah.
In this environment, I know you mentioned so much of what you did was, let me just try this and see what happens, combined with, okay, now I'm doing it, let me burn the boats.
Yeah.
You chose to take a creative entrepreneurial path where I'm hearing that's not necessarily something that was present or dominant in how you grew up, your family, your friends. I'm kind of like, where did this come from? Like, did you know when you were younger, hey, like I am going to do my own thing? Or was it something that just, you're like, no, I just can't do community college, guys.
I think it was definitely more so the latter. But like, I remember we were talking earlier about luck being when opportunity meets preparation. I feel like the opportunity was the idea of YouTube coming into my life. Like, I feel like there's a lot of luck involved with even having the ideas come to you. Like with Karat, right? You don't just like think of that when you're a child, like, oh, I'm going to create a line of credit for creators. You know what I mean? These ideas come from the ether, wherever, like that will just randomly pop into your head. That to me is the opportunity. And there's a lot of luck there too. But the preparation I felt was like, I feel like the preparation is a lease. Like you have to keep being prepared. You have to keep like doing these things to let the opportunities, to make the opportunities happen. I'm kind of just rambling right now, but like what I mean for the YouTube thing is I never thought about like any of that happening, nor was I like anticipating that happening. That just landed. And I feel like I was prepared in a sense that I had this time where I was wanting to find something that wasn't college. And I also was super deep into fashion. And all of that kind of came together in that post-semester time, you know?
And
so it all happened at the same time. I never thought about it as a kid, nor did I have any ambition of doing anything entrepreneurial. All the stars aligned that day.
I kind of love that answer, because when I was going through my existential crisis on, hey, I don't want to work a corporate job, I want to do something of my own, part of the imposter syndrome I felt was seeing these really successful founders, creators, all be like, this is what I was put on earth to do this.
No, dude, I hate that answer.
Me too, because I was like, well, I don't know why the I was put on this earth. And so I formed this story in my head.
Oh, so you always thought you needed this?
Yes, I thought I needed it because I'd hear all these people. I distinctly remember I went to this meeting hosted by Y Combinator, this top startup incubator that Airbnb and DoorDash and Dropbox went through.
That was a Jump Cut.
Oh yeah, Jump Cut went through that too. And actually, we've since gone through that as well.
Yeah.
I went to a meetup arranged by, and they had this company here called Clever. And they produce software that helps schools and teachers like teach more kids, software for schools, basically. I remember the founder there being like, ever since he was young, he knew he was put on this earth to help students and teachers. And I remember thinking, oh my God, I don't have that.
Yeah.
I don't know what I'm doing with my life. So how could I possibly do anything of my own? And I've since realized for so many people, our stories are more like what you just described. It's like this weird mix of environmental factors combined with things we're interested at the time, combined with look, at the end of the day, it took serious courage or conviction to drop out of community college and sit at a wall and record YouTube videos all day. Like, I understand, yes, you got very lucky, but you still had to put in that time and work. And sometimes that develops into the clear mission or passion over time.
I agree. I feel like no one gives luck enough credit. Everyone wants to be like this, I worked hard for this, you know, like I manifested this. I like did everything that I could to make this happen. But it's like, if you really think about all the things that have that had to be in place for you to be successful, like there's so much there's so many like external factors
Yeah.
that you were never in control over, no matter how much you want to say the story was written from the start. Like these things happened by luck.
I love that. We all want to be self-made because we want to feel good about ourselves.
Yeah.
But the truth is, there's so much we don't know what's going to happen. And I think real meaning comes not from I had this plan from the start, but I was able to react when life threw something my way, and I was able to make something out of it.
I think reacting is a good.
To your point, I consider myself extremely lucky and pretty good at reacting to when those opportunities arise.
true.
You mentioned a lot of this when people say I've been meaning since I was a kid to build this. It's a story. What do you feel like? So first, I love that point. Second, like, what do you feel like are stories about yourself that you've changed over time? Either you're like, this is a story I told me about me that I don't hold anymore or that I've had to update.
That's good. I've never been asked that. I feel like it's always the what do you think of yourself now? I feel like it also changing the story that you tell of yourself is kind of hard the older you get, because the older you get, you feel like you have a better understanding of yourself. And then when things change, you're like, oh, I guess that wasn't right. But I think now, something that I think differently of myself now, or how I would change my story, I guess I come across as someone that's very like, I don't care, how things happen, or like I don't care what's going on. I feel like nowadays I definitely care, but it's my approach to the caring part. It's like I'm not a perfectionist, right? I'm not like it has to be exactly this way, but I am very passionate about things, which back then, like, of course, like being in college and dropping out and not knowing what I want to do, I always thought I was like, whatever happens, I don't care, I guess the story changed now is I do care, but I'm more like accepting of the process happening, unveiling itself as the idea progresses. Like, for example, if something comes out the way I didn't expect, I'm more accepting of like, okay, this is all part of the learning process. I'm not like super caught up in like the details and like, oh, it had to come out this way. This is wrong. This is wrong. This is wrong. I guess I'm more just appreciative of the entire process. Yeah. Does that make sense?
No, it's beautiful because in my mind, when I care about something, traditionally I've associated that degree of care with the exact nature of output. Like I really care about this podcast we're doing together right now. And I care very much about the output, meaning sometimes I do these in the past, the audio wouldn't work, the microphone wouldn't work. I would myself for it.
Exactly.
What I'm hearing is, no, I care, but I care about the process.
Yeah.
And almost once upon a time, because you've always cared more about process and didn't care as much about the exact way this output came out.
Exactly.
You told yourself maybe, I'm just a guy who doesn't care. It's like, no, you did care. It's just about the journey that maybe conventional society fixates caring with the outcome.
I think, you're completely right. Like, obviously there's a balance. There has to be some sense of like, you got to make sure your vision doesn't stray so far. But for me, I feel like I've kind of identified my core values of what I care about when it comes to, for example, right, for a video, like you were talking about with the podcast, like sometimes the mic cuts out or the video cuts out or like, and you don't realize it or something or whatever. For videos, like sometimes like I'll like try to style something, right? And it just doesn't look as good as I wanted it to look. Like in my head, it looked really good. But when I put it on, it just doesn't look as good. And when I finally see what it looks like, I can build on that as opposed to trying to reverse engineer what was in my head. It's moving past what it was and being like, okay, so this is what really happened. But and then like going from there. I think you're right though. People associate care with like the end product as opposed to the process. And I think it can be the other way. I feel like you can be very passionate about the process and then the end product is the byproduct of what you were actually in love with, which is like doing the thing.
It reminds me, a friend once told me that style is being yourself intentionally. And I kind of loved it because
that's a good point.
Yeah, it supposes there is no perfect way to look. It's more just what you wanted to do as long as you're holding true to that.
Yeah.
You mentioned even while you were in community college and not sure what to do with your life, you were already very passionate about fashion. And you mentioned a little, you said you were talking about this with friends, like you were working at Tommy Hilfiger. Where did this passion initially come from? Because look, I think having such a degree of commitment that, again, you drop out of school to go and make videos about this with literally no followers, and you're not even telling your parents and your friends, like, that's an insane level of commitment to the craft. What was the start of this?
Funny enough, I would say that there's a whole wave now of fashion creators like that are, you know, just starting off making content on TikTok, YouTube, whatever. These guys know and care more about fashion now at their age. Like some of them are young. They're like in high school or like first year of college or whatever. They know and care more about fashion than I did at that age infinitely. Like some of them know more and care about fashion than I do now with the platform that I have. So comparing what kind of like the interest level is now, back then when I started doing my channel, I can say that I guess fashion wasn't necessarily like, I wasn't super knowledgeable or very like deep into caring about it necessarily, but I think it was just a topic that I feel like I had a fun perspective on because it came across very like, you know, like highbrow kind of, what's the term? What's the term of something like when you feel like you're not supposed to be there?
Like imposter syndrome?
Not imposter syndrome.
Like sanctimonious?
No, I think I'm directing the wrong way. But like a pretentious, there we go. Jesus Christ. So like it felt very pretentious, you know? And so my perspective was just very goofy. I had all these funny jokes and memes about it without actually having to like be a part of that world. I just had a good perspective on it. So it wasn't, I wouldn't say I was necessarily passionate about fashion, but that was just the vessel. That was just the medium of which I could like communicate maybe fun comedic perspective. So I guess at the end of the day, the passion was creating and talking, and fashion just so happened to be my medium.
I love the description of you're bringing almost this comic lowbrow perspective into traditionally pretentious highbrow area. There's almost something very rebellious or almost rude about, like this is something like Vogue holds high fashion shows and like I'm going to make funny YouTube videos with like memes.
Exactly. So do you know my Instagram handle?
Yeah, it's Vance at the Met Gala.
So the ethos behind that is everything that I've been doing in my life. It's the phrase Vans at the Met Gala is, you know, you can take it literally, and it also means that, where it's like, I do want to go into the Met Gala wearing a pair of dirty Vans. I think it's just a fun statement. But also, if you think about it metaphorically, it really is just kind of be yourself where you're not supposed to be yourself. You'll shine brighter where you're not supposed to be, you know? That's kind of been the ethos of my channel, really.
I also love because there's a spirit behind it of, hey, if you really want to wear what you want to wear, even if others might not approve, you can. And in a way, you're redefining what fashion is.
That's like, again, that could be what you take from the name, where it's like wear what you want to wear, even though everyone else doesn't look like you.
You're willing to trespass.
Yeah, trespass your individuality, you know?
Wow.
Yeah.
And I also love not only the style, because like there's almost like multiple layers here, right? So like layer one, it's like, oh, here's the guy who's talking about fashion. And maybe he's talking about styles that the traditional pretentious orthodoxy doesn't necessarily follow. That's like level one, level two. Oh, he's doing so through YouTube.
Yeah, which is another,
2016, unusual.
Yeah.
Number three, he's doing it like with memes and he's funny. And like number four, and he's doing so like he is a, 18-year-old, 19-year-old Asian American guy in Hawaii.
It's
who's like
so out of bounds, you know?
Like kicking it with his friends, like in the library. And then number five, and actually he's not even telling his friends and his parents. There's like so many, in a weird way, like boundary violations of traditionally who gets to talk about fashion and dictate. It's almost like that meme, that scene from The Devil Wears Prada, right? Where the queen bee, whatever her name is, right? She's like telling, oh, I decide what you random people wear.
Yeah.
3 years from now, it all
Yeah.
trickles down. You're almost this very subversive way of being like, no, you. I'm going to talk about this too.
I feel like that perspective spoke to a lot of people because there are a lot of people that, you know, find fashion to be very cool and interesting. And at the end of the day, it's a big part of our lives, you know, whether we're conscious of it or not. I feel like on first impression of somebody, what they're wearing is top 3 things you notice. So it so happened to also work in my favor that we care about fashion, you know? And from that time that I started making content to now, like it's kind of exploded as a hobby. Like more and more people are getting into fashion, which kind of ended up working in terms of like getting a bigger audience. But if you're not very active in the hobby, like in discussion and like what's trending and like what everyone's like talking about and designers and all the technical parts of like fashion history and all that, even if you're just like, I want to look good, it's easier to digest and take in information from someone that's presenting it at this low level fast food like presentation as opposed to reading what's in Vogue. You're not going to understand, or like even like a men's magazine, you know, it's more relatable that way. I feel like I capitalized on the relatability because there were a lot more people that liked fashion that were like me as opposed to like the Bella Hadids of the world and stuff, you know?
Especially, like, I don't look like Bella Hadid, especially in the States. Like, fashion is very dominated by, well, like, hey, can I look like that? Are there people there who look like me? And fashion, we talked about it earlier, it's not like there's a ton of Asian American styles and fashions and models compared to, well, white people. And I almost feel you have this, your channel in a way, it seems like it's about fashion, but it's also about like relatable, playful subversiveness.
Yeah.
Like you get to care about this too, even if you don't look like these people or talk like them.
Yeah, I feel like you're right. That was something that wasn't part of the message and objective, but it just so happened to also wrap into what was likable about the channel. It made it feel inclusive, especially for people that, like you're saying, don't look like the Western kind of normal, like white people in fashion, like 6 foot tall, skinny, you know?
What's kind of cool is it goes back to, I know you didn't grow up as a child, being like, I grew up as a child. You were truly a child of all time.
Yeah.
So the development, though, from I'm going to make a YouTube channel to like, oh, this higher level mission where I'm describing, this like subversiveness, this openness around fashion, like that's something that probably evolved along the way, right? It's not something I think you can think through from very day one and be like, yeah, I'm going to do this.
No, I'm not going to sit here and be like, it was always my story.
Just what's the Japanese? Well, you know, I know you mentioned you don't actually watch a ton of anime, but there's a Japanese phrase like all according to kekaku, like all according to plan. It's like, this is not according to plan.
No.
I also love, you know, before the pod started, you mentioned you grew up in Hawaii, where everybody is a mix of Asian.
Yeah. Yeah.
To a point where you don't even notice because everyone's just Asian.
Yeah.
And you talk about fashion. You said you earlier on talked about fashion with your other friends, but you were working in a Tommy Hilfiger store, which is very Western.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm curious, for your own personal fashion, as you've developed your sense of style, do you feel that's come more Western influenced, Eastern influenced, like Hawaii influenced? What's that for you?
I mean, the boring answer is there's a little bit of everything, but I do feel like nowadays my current style has been really, I've always been like fond of trying out everything. Because it's like, there's so many different styles.
Your hair changes colors.
My hair changes colors all the time just because it's fun, you know?
Yeah.
I feel like there's so many ways to express yourself. If you don't have one clear-cut, refined perspective, why would you pigeonhole your style to that? Like, I almost envy people that can, like, keep one lane. Like, I know people that, like, have had the same style and they've just refined and built on that forever. And it's cool because it's like, one, they can just keep wearing the same clothes and not having to move all the time. But it's like, I always find myself going all over the place, whether it be for content, fashion, all parts of my life. Really, I find myself kind of spacing out. So right now my style reflects that in a way that it's all over the place.
So your style reflects your life. What's your life's like? Look, from a 2016 community school dropout, just making videos, to you are a successful creator who's built a business. Over 1 million. There are so many people who watch and listen to what you say now. What is the focus of your life now creatively? Like, what's the dream?
Well, the dream is to be able to keep doing what I want to do for however long. You know, I don't have, as like counterintuitive as this might sound, I don't have many long-term goals. There are no like, in 5 years I have to do this, in 10 years I have to do this, because those things are going to change. Like everyone that's like, I respect everyone that has those like long-term goals and like meets that and like targets their life towards that. Just my personality type, I'm very fluid. I know the goals are going to change. What I do have though is in my current state, I have like ideas and like fun things that I want to do. I'm not going to plot those on a calendar though. And so the dream is to be able to have these ideas and have the discipline to facilitate them and actually make them happen. Because an idea without execution is pointless. You know, it's just a thought. So the dream now is to keep executing on fun things that I want to do. That's my current dream.
It reminds me your earlier point on passion being tied less to outcome, less to specific milestones dropped on a calendar, more tied to process, which for you is I get to keep doing what I want to do and having the discipline to execute on it.
Yeah. Like, for example, tomorrow I could like have this brilliant idea of a show, pitch it to my friend. They love it. We pursue that for a year, which you can't plan that, you know, that just happens. That disrupts the 5-year plan. If you have a 5-year plan plotted on your calendar, you kind of bottleneck what you can do, you know, which for some people, they find more satisfaction in this focus. And I think you need a balance of focus, and you need to balance focus into any plan anyways. But for me, I find more satisfaction in just like when things happen, I want to be able to do them, you know, like I want to be able to like have fun doing everything.
On the one hand, you're talking a lot about freedom and creativity, both in what I want to do and having the space to pursue it. And on the other, I'm hearing these allusions toward discipline and rigor. Right? You mentioned, for example, the discipline to actually execute on what you want to do. Otherwise, it's just an idea. Or earlier, we talked a little bit about the business side of what you do as a creator, that you have an accountant, that you've brought in essentially your own full-time manager who's covered an entire year of your AdSense inventory ahead of time. You have multiple podcast productions going on. And I'm like, this simultaneous, I am free and creative and I've got my shit together. Let's talk a little bit more about that. I've got my shit together.
I don't think
part.
I do though.
Well, what do you mean? Because you have so many of these structures in place.
So I feel like at any level, you definitely know this feeling. At any level, you know there are so many anxieties and stresses that come from all different angles, you know? But from the outside, it looks like they have their shit together. Like, it's like the same thing with like a household, like a nuclear family where you're looking at them through the window and you're like, they have their shit together. But you don't know about the constant fighting every night or the son like having mental problems or what. Like, there's so many like internal issues. I feel like having your shit together is relative, and that's why I feel like I don't have my shit together, because I see so many people way more responsible than me, way more in check than me. I'm like, if I was that clean, I would take over the world. But, you know,
I kind of love that.
God only gives you so many cards, you know? And I do feel sometimes though, like, not imposter syndrome, I guess it's akin to that, but like, you ever feel like the rug's just going to get pulled from under
any
you?
moment it could all just collapse.
All the time I think about that. I think the more, I guess as time progresses, I feel less of that, but it comes back, you know, over time it comes back. I'm like, I feel like the bubble's going to burst.
That's why you said for you, the dreams, you get to keep doing what you're going to do. Because you're scared. What if I don't?
There might come a time where I'm not able to do the things that I want to do. And I also have accepted that if that time comes, I'll have to go and figure it out. You know? But at the same time, I guess right now, yeah, I feel more secure than I've ever been. So I feel like relative to the past, I have my shit together. But I would like to say that no one ever has their shit together.
Yeah.
Everyone's if you had your shit together, it would be easy. Funnily enough, the times where I feel like the rug's gonna get pulled is when I'm most comfortable. It feels like there was a point last year where I was like, okay, I have all these channels doing good, stable, everything that I can, like money is good. Like I'm kind of in a good, I have the apartment that I've always wanted. You know, I'm living the lifestyle I've always wanted. I was comfortable and I didn't need to do anything. I was like sitting on my couch like, okay, cool. And then I realized like, wow, I feel like this could all just disappear.
It's right when you feel as fast it goes.
It's so weird. Like as soon as I got comfortable, I felt like, oh, I got to be careful. The rug's going to get pulled. Yeah. So it's like that. I don't know if there's any truth to this. I've never Googled it, but you know, like how sharks can't stop moving or they'll
keep swimming.
Or they'll die. Someone Google that. That can't be true. If that is true.
For what it's worth, I've heard it through as well. And I think it's true.
Okay. That's kind of how I feel sometimes. Cause like in the moments where I'm like starting a new idea, am the most stressed, have to learn like a lot of that brain one activation where I'm like, you know, like in front of it. That's where I feel like I'm most secure. You know, like when the momentum is going, I feel like I'm the safest.
Yeah. It's like the same capability you have can be a superpower or a curse, right?
Yeah,
it's like, in a way, you're describing when I turn around and burn the boats, oh, I know I'm going to do great work.
Yeah, for sure.
But then what happens when like I don't need to burn the boats and everything's chill? And I'm just like,
something's going to happen.
Oh, God.
It's weird, though. I feel like, I don't know if I've always had that. Like, how for you, when do you most feel like the rug's going to get pulled? Like, when do you most feel uncomfortable?
So we just raised a Series B, a lot of money, $70 million. And one of my employees actually gave me feedback the other day because he saw when I talk about it in content and in private, people would be like, oh, how do you feel? And the number one thing I'd say is, most likely we'll still fail. We're a venture-backed startup. Wow. The odds are against us. Statistically, we're probably going to fail. Obviously, I believe in what we're doing enough to bet my own time on it. And I simultaneously, knowing we're less likely going to fail, believe in enough that I'm going to try my hardest to have it succeed. And saying things like, well, you know, now if it fails, it's just even more meaningfully bad because, you know, we failed 3-4 years ago. Nobody would fucking care. Now we fail. Our clients, our friends, our investors, creators we work with, our business partners. Stake. Yeah. Everyone's going to turn to us and be like, wow, Eric, you dumb And I try and be really honest about my feelings at any given point in time. So people would be like, wow, like, how do you feel? I'd be like, well, you know, most likely the odds are against us. And cool, we fail. It just gets worse. And my employee was just like, dude, like, I love you. And I'm sharing this feedback because I actually care about the company. This is not helping.
Wow.
It was almost, he didn't say this.
Wait, were you public about this is probably going to fail? But
yeah. Wow. If I'll show you later, literally the shorts I put out on her Instagram, there's a segment where I was like, yeah, so we're probably going to fail, but I still believe in this.
Wow.
Because the odds are against us. Yeah. And I don't feel secure. It feels disingenuous to pretend otherwise. And the feedback my employee gave me was like, dude, like at a certain point, and this is how I took it. He didn't say it this way. At a certain point, you're now just saying this less for the company and the people you're trying to help and more to assuage your own sense of insecurity and guilt. Because at a certain point, it almost becomes cute. Like people are staking their time and money and trust with you. You don't get to go out. He didn't actually say this. This is how I interpret it. Yeah. You don't get to go out and be like, well, I don't know.
Right.
Like, it might not work. Yeah. And if it doesn't work, well, I told you so. Like, no, you don't get to say that. No. At a certain point, you have to own it.
Yeah. For sure.
Yeah. And I was like, wow, that's a really good point. There's a certain appropriate level of disclosure and feelings to share. Like feelings are important. And yet to almost share every intrusive thought and fear that you have it actually hurts your progress toward goal, and it freaks people out
Yeah.
who don't have the same context as you. So it's something I've been grappling with myself where, yeah, I feel a lot of fear, and acting in a state of fear doesn't mean I don't know if I can make the best decisions for the company if I'm always acting from a state of fear.
Why do you think you felt the need to externalize that specific thought?
Because I'm really scared.
You're scared?
I'm so, when you said I want to just be able to keep doing what I want to do, and that freedom is what I care about. It's the same for me. It's why I left the corporate world. It's why I'm so grateful. And I similarly wonder if I'm kneecapping myself because I'm too afraid of how far we've come in losing that to make the decisions that will actually continue it because there's too much risk involved. It's almost like in the early days when we had nothing, I felt so much more empowered to make the bold decisions that were very risky.
Yeah, because there's not as much.
It's like,
because you got nothing to lose.
I have nothing to lose.
Yeah, now that you have stuff to lose,
Exactly.
you feel it weighing down on you.
For instance, early days, I mentioned to you, we tried a lot of different products and services for creators, and some of them, like, people would get really mad at us and be like, I think I told you we try and provide business capital to creators.
Yeah.
A lot of YouTubers, when we approach them, like at VidCon, like, you guys are huge scammers. Like, I can show you emails we got.
Wow.
People like, this is so fucking dumb. And it didn't really matter because nobody knew what we were doing. And now when we launch something and say it doesn't go perfectly, and realistically, oftentimes it doesn't because we make mistakes. Now I'm like, oh, our reputation is on the line, and that's scary. And yet to sit there and do nothing and be overly protective also means, as sharks do when they're not swimming, you also die. So it's like this very weird, the same impulses that drove me to do something different are now making me scared of losing what we have.
I feel like I have a similar thing, but it's not the same because in a creative medium, you have more opportunity to fail. You're kind of supposed to fail. When you have investors and you're a business, I feel like there's different leeway for failing, Like creatively, if you fail, it's subjective. In a business, in a more objective world, I feel like you have a better right to be scared,
And yet the crazy thing is, the reason why Silicon Valley has been the most successful generator on new companies and startups was because as much as possible, it tried to change and meld company building with creative work.
Oh.
Where, hey, if you fail in Silicon Valley, that's not something to be ashamed of.
Yeah.
It was the inevitable part of you made one thing, it didn't work, so try the next. Empirically, it's been successful. There's a reason why Silicon Valley still is the number one generator of startups. And personally, I think you're right. They are a little different, but I think the path to success is to try and tie them as similarly as you can. I had a friend who used to tell me, and look, I thought it was a little on the nose, but there's a certain "f you" sentiment in her expression. Like she said, for me, Drake drops records. Like I drop companies. Like I've done 3 companies so far, and a couple of them haven't worked. So what? On to my next. Again, on the one hand, that's a certain level of being cavalier because there's people's jobs and investor money and all that. And again, there's a certain mentality when it's like, I do think to create something really good, you have to be able to have some of that mentality.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like now more than ever, like the people that I'm meeting, like that are top of their field, are always nuts. They're always crazy, And I think you need that though. Like if you were normal, you wouldn't be. Those ideas don't come from someone with a level head. And so that's why I think you can embrace that more.
Yeah.
Being crazy. I think the world needs more crazy.
I'm with you.
If we were all normal, life would suck. There would be no ups and downs. It'd be a flat.
That's what when I hear you say you operate best when you're burning the boats. I can see how it can be scary when there are no boats to burn. But I also see that as that's your need to be creative.
Yeah.
Like you kind of...
You're forced to like... I remember thinking back at when I was really broke in New York. I had just moved there, like $500 to my name. I was living with like 7 guys at a time where I had that fire under my ass where me and my friend Johnny had to share food from Costco. Like we would buy Costco meatballs and count it and split it So
Like 5 meatballs, 2.5 for you, 2.5 for me.
we had to like count food. And looking back, when I was forced to kind of figure it out, those were some of the most fulfilling times of my life. When I would find breaks of success, I would enjoy that so much more, or like breaks of like happiness and moments of feeling like, oh my God, I'm doing it. Like I'm like chasing that still. Chasing that like when I first started doing stuff and started like hammering down on like what I needed to like, or like hammering down like my responsibilities and like, oh my God, I'm doing the thing, you know? But in those moments, there's like, so I have so little at that time. And I'm only forced to be creative because I've burned the boats, but I haven't built anything on the land yet.
Ooh.
You know? That's when I felt the most happiness. I'd say most fulfillment. I guess happiness is relative, but most fulfillment for sure. Like
Yeah.
I've gotten more fulfillment off of like the first time I landed a brand deal than now when I'm selling a year and it's like whatever. In those moments, I feel there was so much more magic. And I think, I don't know.
What brings the magic now?
Yeah. Well, now the magic comes from new things that are like completely opposite from the whole like doing YouTube stuff. I feel like there comes a point, I forgot who said this, but I remember like you're going to feel happier reaching 100K than 1 million. And you're not even going to care when you hit 10 million. Like, obviously, I don't know what the 10 million one's like, but I can tell you, like, when I hit 100K, I was watching the live thing. It was a whole moment. I remember having like a whole like existential, like, oh my God, like I made it. Like my life has been changed forever. Like this is the greatest accomplishment I've ever had. And I can see the next 10 years of my life. When I hit 1 million, I like woke up to a text from my friend going, yo, congrats on 1 million. And it was like during COVID, I think. I remember just like sleeping on my couch, waking up to 1 million, like, oh, that's cool. I didn't notice I was that close. And I think that's to get that feeling of 100K again, it's not going to be 10 million. It's not going to be 100 million. I think it's new things, something new. And that's what goes back to, I feel like my style kind of matches my personality. It's trying all these new things. I get excited at new things. I'm like a kid in a Toys R Us, you know? For me, the magic comes back when I'm trying new things. And right now I'm starting a clothing brand, you know? And that whole part of like building a team, being like a true executive in an executive position, like hiring not just like editors, because I feel like for my other channels, it's like I got my channel manager to do it. Like, oh, can we find some editors for this? And my team, like also on the show, like finds animators and stuff. This is the first time where I had to like buy an office, find some people on the team, figure out how to do all these things, talk to factories, set like hire models, scout models, all this stuff, all this new like stuff. It feels like I found new land and I'm burning the boats again, you know?
Wow.
So that's where the magic comes from, I think now. It's like exploring all these new avenues where not only is it a different field of work, but the actual work is different.
You're shifting from content creator to company creator to a founder to an executive to a leader.
And obviously it's a clothing brand. It's not like I have like this big 20-person team. There's like 6 of us. But even then, like
it's a lot of people.
Yeah, like managing people feels like hopping on calls with different people that excel in different parts of the company.
Yeah.
It's cool. It feels new. And I feel that's where now more than ever I'm like, ooh, I feel the momentum again.
So you're feeling the fulfillment.
Yeah.
So this is like another chapter.
It is. I feel like there's like a. Oh, I know I like was talking about the 5-year thing, but this just so happened to be a 5-year segment of when I was 20 and to now I'm 25. That 5 years was like really doing all what I wanted to do with content.
Yeah.
And now at 25, I'm like, let's see what I can do with this next string of time with the clothing brand stuff.
This goes back to our earlier discussion around it's all just a creative process.
Yeah, this clothing brand stuff was not planned. I didn't want to make a clothing brand.
Where did this come from then?
It came from a lot of things. One of the main things was dialing in when I was like at my most comfortable. And I was like, I don't even know what I'm doing. Like none of this stuff is like exciting anymore. It's just easy. Like making content felt easy. Like, I could sit on anyone's podcast and talk to anybody. It's like, I've been doing it for 6 years. It came from dialing into what I even found fulfilling in that process. And I think I came to the conclusion of I love creating. Like I love making things. And a lot of the stuff I've made is digital. It's all online. You can watch it, but you can't hold it. I can't like go up to someone and be like, hey, I made this with a video. I can show them on the phone, but I can't be like, hey, feel that I created this idea it's not tangible. And so what made the most sense? Clothes, you know? I work with clothes all day. I'm like working on them for videos. I'm like live around them. And that was also just something that it was not planned. It just so happened to be that was like a clear next step for me.
But that's what makes it so much better. It's not like, oh, I'm a fashion creator, let me just go make some clothes. It's like, well, I want to create something different, something new, something physical. This makes sense. This feels right.
Yeah, and like even at that moment, I didn't even have the idea yet for like what the brand was going to be. Like I'll tell you off the podcast what it's going to be because it's a whole like
wow.
It's so big now. But in the moment of the conception of I'm going to make a clothing brand idea, I didn't know what the clothes were going to look like. I didn't know what I was going to do. I just knew like, ooh, there's something there. There's a piece of land there that I want to conquer, you know?
That's what gets you excited. That's when it's something new.
It's something new. I don't know what that new thing is yet. In, you know, like what the brand is now, it's still evolving. I feel like everything is still evolving. Every story is still being written. I can't go here and be like, oh, I came up with this idea. Like I sat down in the basement for 2 days straight with no food and water and thought of this. Like this whole thing is evolving constantly. And that's what's so exciting.
I kind of love, in a way, to recreate the magic when you were sharing apartments in New York with 7 guys and you're splitting meatballs, you know, 100K.
Yeah.
It's in a way, now you have an entire
all the
environment.
meatballs.
Exactly. All the meatballs. You have these really successful content plays.
Yeah.
As you said, you can jump and make any video and shoot it and know it's going to do reasonably well. This is the next level. This is like the version of, okay, like, cool, it's great you have these videos, but just because you're a successful YouTuber doesn't mean you're going to be a successful founder.
Yeah, it's true. I remember hanging out with my friend Zain, who he has this big brand, Rastah, out of Pakistan. He's huge. He's like Forbes 30 under 30, like, and his mind works. I love like talking to him about the way he goes about his brand because he's such a fun guy. He's like, you could party with him and do everything, but then he like has this huge team of like artisanal people in like Pakistan, like creating clothes. I remember we hung out one day, we got dinner, and I remember just like sitting with like I remember just thinking about our conversation, like, man, his stressors are so different from mine.
Yeah.
Like he's like creating clothes, like I'm creating videos, but there's so much more on the line because he has all these employees and it's like a physical product. It's not like, I hope if it gets views, whatever. If it doesn't sell, like you have a physical thing sitting there. I'm like, like it made no sense as to why I would pursue that. That's why I excluded it as a thing. I was like, I'm not going to run a clothing brand. There's so many different, it was not part of the plan, but I guess it came back when I was comfortable and thought, this is such a uncomfortable thought. Yeah. And it's not like I'm seeking discomfort, but it came back around the sun in a different package as to not, I would never do this because this seems so stressful, but rather, look at this new problem that you can solve. Look at this new venture, you know? Look at this new idea that has come back as not like a ball of mud, but like a present. Yeah. And I don't know. I think that's why I can't plan the 5 years.
Because you never know what would happen.
You never know.
There's almost an element of perversity you're describing where you're like, it's precisely because I'm listening to him describe this and my initial reaction was, oh, I don't want this. That in a way is why you want to do it now.
Yeah.
When you worried you were becoming complacent.
I think now more than ever, I'm going out of my way to do the things I don't like.
Yeah.
I've noticed a lot of the things I love now, I hated.
Like what?
Well, right now I'm a big cold shower guy, and nobody likes cold showers. You don't get used to them. They suck all the time.
But that's the point.
But if I can get myself to do that, I feel like I'm just better equipped to do other things. It's like a bunch of small things. For example, like I hate, I'm like not the cleanest guy. Like I'm just like, I can live wherever. But in the morning, I've been making myself like, for an hour, I'm going to clean up my apartment. And I hate it. But like in that moment, I'm like, I'm going to do it because I don't want to do it.
I love that. Aristotle's philosophy was centered around the cultivation of virtues. Like the way to live a good life is to cultivate a virtue you appreciate and value. And I'm hearing you describe, you're like, well, it's not like I really want to take the cold shower or do the hard thing or start the clothing brand or clean up my room. But you almost implicitly feel there's a virtue here, right? Around discipline. Right? Around creativity. That's worth leaning into.
Yeah. I'm also very competitive. I feel like I should have gotten to this point earlier, but competition, whether the opponent knows it's a competition or not, to me, it's such a driving factor.
Yeah.
Like for the YouTube thing, I should have included this earlier. Okay, if you're this late into the podcast, this is the real value.
You're committed now.
This is the real value. So I remember I used to train with this guy, Scott. It was my friend. I met him in community college, and we used to train in the gym together. And like, he's a tall guy. He's like 6'2", bigger guy, like, strong, muscular guy. And at the time I was like really out of shape, like overweight, and I'm like shorter than him. And we used to train MMA together. We wanted to get into MMA together. And I wanted to do it because like I was like, oh, you know what? It'll be a good excuse for me to lose weight. It'll be fun. And we used to go to the gym and we would spar. And obviously I get my fucking ass handed to me because he's in better condition. He's longer. He's stronger. And in every way on paper, better equipped for fighting and will beat my ass 100 times out of 100 times. And so I remember looking at that adversity thinking like, oh my God, I got to like go in and train when he's not there so that when we spar again, he's like, what the when did you learn that? So I would like train with him, and then on the days where he's not going to the gym, I'm going to the gym and like making friends with the actual fighters. Be like, yo, you gotta like teach me how to do this. I want to learn. I want to get into it. And I don't even think I liked fighting, the sport of fighting, but I think I liked fighting. Like I like going after it. And while he thought it was just a fun, we sparred once a week type thing, on those 6 days where he's like not sparring, I'm going in and training with people. And over time, I can feel myself like, even though he's more physically in shape and has the edge on me physically, I'm getting some hits in now, And it felt good. I'm like, I'm making progress. And he has no idea what's coming.
Oh, you're going to whoop his ass.
He has no idea. And I remember there was a month where he like didn't really come to the gym. He was like busy doing something else, and I took that whole month to train with my friends that like I like fought with, and he came in, and I remember like feeling so comfortable, like feeling so confident, and like whooping his ass and sparring, and he's like, "What the fuck?" And I remember like playing it off like, "Oh man, I don't know what happened. And that feeling was like a drug. The competition of like, I'm going to go after it. David Goggins?
Yeah.
Love that shit.
Yeah.
Like, I don't make it a part of my personality externally because, I feel like if you're externalizing it, you're not actually internalizing it sometimes. Right. A lot of people that talk about that are not actually about it.
Do it. Don't talk about it.
Exactly. And so like with fighting, like that's how I got into MMA because I did that and then I loved it. And then I was just friends with all the fighters at the gym and that's how that happened. That spirit carried into everything that I wanted to do. And funnily enough, Scott was like, yo, I was thinking of starting a YouTube channel for my car. Like I was going to do car vlogs. And I was like, oh, that's cool. And he was like, yeah, I think I could really take off on this stuff. And I was like, yeah. And I remember like having the idea and I like briefly shared with him, like, just like, oh, I was thinking about it too. I didn't tell him like I was going to do it with the fashion stuff. I was just like, oh, I was thinking about doing something too. And he was like, well, like, let's both start channels, and whoever is the first to get to 10K, like let's see who can get to 10,000 subscribers first, or something like that. And it was like this joke competition for him. And in my head, I'm like, it would be crazy if I actually did that, though. Yeah. It would be crazy if I actually hit 10,000 subscribers, though. And so that was a big part of me going in every day to the library and putting in the work. And it's funny because that's such a bad reason. But I think looking back now, that spirit of competition drives me.
I think the most important things, to your earlier point, are do the things that you want to do. And for you, there's fulfillment you feel from maybe others or myself. It wasn't clear if I could do this and I could win. And so when you do, it's incredible.
Yeah. I also think I just get a lot of fulfillment from the thought of the competition too.
Yeah.
It's not even about the winning, really. It's about the I'm coming after you, you know?
Yeah.
Like I'm gonna put in that work every day. And sometimes I fall short. Like a lot of the times I fall short, which is again part of the game.
Yeah. The outcome almost
It's
is
not
less
about the
important,
outcome,
but it was the thrill of the hunt. The chase.
Exactly.
When you mentioned as a creator going to being a founder, for me, I'm a founder who's leaning more and more to being a creator. And it's so funny because originally the podcast started almost more as like I think this would be fun. Let's see what happens.
Yeah.
But I've quickly found myself competitive with other podcast channels.
Oh man, you need it though.
Yeah.
Because then what are you doing?
Yeah,
you know?
exactly. So like I look at the ones that are way bigger than we are, right?
Yeah.
Like Iced Coffee Hour with Graham Stephan, like Under the Influence, Suburb Talks, right? I mean, there's so many of these. Impulsive, Colin and Samir. And now I study them.
Oh, you need
And
to.
every few weeks I'll like come back to our editors and be like, let's try it like this. And what's so funny is there's a few other pods that were of similar size to us, and now we're bigger than they are.
Yeah.
And I just look at them and I feel really good.
Oh yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
It's like I don't want to make people feel bad.
Yeah.
But in my head, I'm
feels good.
stepping on them.
Oh, it feels.
Oh
it
my
feels,
God.
feels fantastic. And what makes
Yeah.
it probably even worse is some of them are like full-time creators.
Yeah.
And so I'm like,
dude, I'm doing this on the side.
like I'm doing this on the side,
Man,
and I'm coming after
yeah.
you. There's that little bit of that you energy.
You need it though. I feel like there's a difference between having that for yourself and being an asshole.
Yes.
Because if you're putting them down for it, like you're just a
Oh
dickhead.
no, I've never told
no.
anyone this ever until this very moment. I'm like, all right, man, if we're gonna talk about this, like, yes, I too. I'm like, I'm not even doing this full time, and I'm whooping your ass now.
No, it's really. I feel like that's you. Even if it's not like competition, there needs to be a thrill.
Oh yeah, you want to
know,
win.
You need a thrill for something, like especially if you're like making content where you're inadvertently competing for space. Like if you're in fashion making content, like you're all talking about the same.
Yeah.
Everyone's talking about the same.
How do you be better and more compelling the next one?
Yeah. So that's why I'm like, I always feel like my personality, my perspective, my like comedic timing, everything in between. I'm like, the person next to me can't do that. We can talk about the same stuff. They could have better title, better thumbnail, get better views. But to me internally, if I can watch their content and feel like I'm funnier than that guy, I'm more entertaining than that guy. It makes me feel better. Like making it about views makes it about a different game.
Yeah.
Sometimes
Views aren't always correlated with.
no. Like there have been times where it's like I've had friends where they've had a video sit for months. They change the thumbnail and the video blows up. And to me, it proves like it's really your content can be amazing, but if people don't see it, it's like that's a different part of the game.
It's a different game. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't like playing the game of numbers.
Right.
It takes away from the creativity and the fulfillment, you know? But at the end of the day, like for me, I guess in YouTube, I'm not really competing as much anymore.
Yeah,
I'm not
because you don't view yourself as a YouTuber.
No. Yeah. I don't really care so much about the beating people in views as much as I did before. Like before coming up on the grind, like
sure. When you have 0 followers,
you need that. I guess now that I've gotten all the fulfillment I've wanted from
it's
YouTube,
a different game.
Yeah, I'm just pivoting now. Like that's the job, but the passion is elsewhere.
I love that.
Yeah.
In a way, just as fashion in a way was a tool for you to grow YouTube, YouTube's now a tool for you to grow into what you want to do
His
next.
comeback, which happens to be clothing.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
That is another full.
Yeah.
orbiting around, coming right back at you.
There's so much of like, you'll see so many parallels in life. I think
What I'm hearing in your life is this constant theme between, it's the mix of creativity and competition.
Yeah.
It's like those
sure.
are the two virtues I hear you cultivate. Like in a way, that's what drives your life.
Yeah.
I want to make something of my own. I want it to be new. I want to create. Part of creativity comes from the fact that it's hard and hasn't been done before.
Yeah.
Oh, and I love just the process itself of trying to win.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. You're so right. I've never like thought about the two being like twins, you know?
Yeah.
Like two parts of the same
Yeah.
ship. Cause like now that you bring it up, it is hand in hand because I feel like a strength of mine is the creativity. And so when it comes to things that I'm competitive in, I automatically go to how can I bend this to fit me better?
I think another one of your skills that helps you succeed in this is the ability to tolerate cognitive dissonance and hold two different ideas at the same time. What I mean by this, there's actually been at least 3 times just during a conversation today, we've discussed conflicting ideals that you're able to do at the same time. We just talked about creativity and competition, which many people would either be, oh, I'm purely an artist.
Yeah.
Or I'm purely a businessman.
Warrior. Yeah.
Exactly. And it's easy for the artist to look at the competitive guy and say, you're a sellout. It's easy for the competitive person to look at the artist and be like, this is impractical. You're able to do both.
Yeah.
Another example is we talked a little about creativity. We talked a little bit about luck being preparation and opportunity.
Yeah.
Right? It's again like a little bit of this,
A little bit of that. Yeah.
a little bit of that, right? It's like being able to hold both at the same time.
I agree. What would you say are your 2 big virtues?
Honestly, very similar to you.
Creativity and competition.
I like to try and think of new things, and I like to try and win. And I think that's why we're meeting in the context that we are.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like you're a creator who's
We're
doing more
like-
business work. I'm
Yeah.
a business guy who's doing more creative
Yeah,
work.
and we're
right?
running in circles with each other right now, you know? I kind of like that though. I feel like it's like you can have the same values, but have completely different personalities.
Yes.
You know, because I can say we have 2 completely different personalities, but I feel like we value the same things and approach things differently. You know?
We're here to win, but it's not enough to win playing someone else's game. It's here to win playing
Your
the
own
game, my version of it. It feels way better to win with the exploit. It feels way better to win when they don't see it coming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh man, I love like thinking of just in sports, art, everything. Like I love rooting for like the alternative player in games. You know, like it's always so, to me, it makes things more interesting.
Yeah.
You know, like in Dragon Ball Z, right? Who's rooting for Goku?
Oh, everyone knows Goku
But
wins.
it's so
Fuck
boring
that.
though. Like, why
Yeah,
are you
who
rooting for
cares?
Goku? You know, I think a lot of people automatically default in life to like, you got to do this. You got to be Goku.
Yeah.
Like, why though? Like, why do you have to be Goku? I don't know about you, but I have really bad like ADHD.
Yeah.
I got diagnosed in 2017 or 2018, and everything made sense in that moment. You know, I remember getting diagnosed, thinking like, I've never thought about that as a reason as to why I love just having like the main path and then just going, oh, what's this? What's all that? I like just, I don't know, my mind wanders.
It's like, that's the point, right? There's this contradictory impulse around, oh, I want to win, but not like by being Goku.
No. Yeah. I don't want to win by being Goku. I don't want to win by like having the best stats, you know? I want to like have this off meta character and find a way to creatively win that you wouldn't have known how to do, you know? Like I want to win in a way that you can't win if you tried winning that way.
Yeah.
I love that. I think it's not at the forefront of my mind. I'm not actively thinking of ways to win like alternatively. I think that's just subconsciously what drives.
It's the path you're going to look for.
Yeah, it's subconsciously what happens anyways, you know?
I kind of love this concept around, I feel even from like the very start, right? You're like in school and you like decide to do YouTube, right? And this come up story from splitting meatballs to where you're at now, moving into reducing your own clothes. It's always just like, I'm going to do what I want to do. And part of what I want to do is being better than other people.
Yeah.
You're a person of contradictory impulses.
Yeah.
And it's your ability to hold these different impulses together. That's what's helping you succeed and win.
I think so too. I think these two are successful because like those two virtues are successful because they work well together.
Yeah, the creativity and the competition.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I like that too. That's a cool perspective. I never thought about them both working hand in hand. You know, I always like do try to find the like just off the beaten path type thing.
So we're gonna finish up with one question here. So this is a game. It's based off 36 questions to fall in love.
Oh my god!
Where these are questions around reciprocity and intimacy. New York Times wrote a study about them. Many of the people who played questions actually became good friends. One pair even fell in love. So
when I fell in love.
Oh, I already have. Oh yeah, the game spin already won, man.
The college dropout and the Harvard graduate come together and play a card game.
And yet, from different angles, we've reached similar points in life.
Yeah, like I don't go to college, you stayed in college, and you're doing the founder thing.
And I'm leaning more into content. You're leaning more into business.
Wow.
It's like, let me put this way.
Funny.
We met partially because you're good friends with Rosie. Yes,
it's also the same thing that you're doing.
Yes. Yeah. Someone who not only is the founder and has raised venture capital, but also tweets about sex and masturbation.
Bro.
Every day.
I say this about her. She's the definition of a min-max character.
Yeah.
Like, so far. Yeah, so far. The sliders are so far in complete opposite directions for, like conflicting things. And it works for her.
Contradictory strengths. But you know what? That's what I look for in my friends and my business partners and my employees.
Yeah.
You look for, we call them spikes, exaggerated traits. I'd rather hire someone who's incredible in X and
It's like the Bill Gates thing, the Microsoft thing, right?
What does it say?
Find the laziest person to solve a problem most efficiently or something like that.
Yeah, because that person clearly has a spike in one particular area around getting stuff done. And maybe in other areas they're pretty bad. I'd rather hire someone who's min-maxed. It's just all around.
Me too. I think I'm like that. I find like you find the balance by mixing these min-max characters
and
as opposed to a bunch of like level-headed, like regular people, you know?
That's also how you build a successful team. Hire for strengths, put them together so all their strengths shine through and you leverage that, then it's just people, a bunch of average people. If you're going to be you, if you're going to let your exaggerated strengths and traits come through, of course people are going to not like you.
Yeah.
But this way you select for the people who are going to with you.
I have a good, I guess it's a coping, but mechanism for dealing with hate is every comment, every person that knows who I am is in a constant state of superposition. I don't know if they don't like me or like me. And if I'm like measured out, I get less from finding out. Because if I find out if I see a comment and it's a hate comment, it will do more to compromise my work than a comment that's, I love your shit. So I don't read any of the comments because I don't know if there's hate out there. I remember sometimes I get interviewed for something like, how do you deal with hate? I'm like, I don't like, because I've seen comments where it's like, and then they'll read the hate comments. I'm like, I didn't know those existed until just now.
See, what I resent most about hate comments is not actually, it's hate. I resent giving them space in my mind.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like now my future actions, maybe whether it's for or against, it's in reaction to the comment. And I don't think you deserve that space in my head to even
exactly. No, you're so little, you don't matter. Like, I don't know why I'm thinking about it right now. Yeah, I stopped reading comments because there's one time I read a comment of, I don't even remember what, I think it was something like, he's like rehashing jokes, or like, you're trying too hard to be funny, or something like that. Some like baseless comment, you know? And like, it kind of stuck around. And I remember the next time I was writing, I was like, what? Doing too many jokes? And in that moment, I'm like, oh man, like I shouldn't even be thinking about this. If I am making too many jokes, that's just the way it was. That's just the way my brain let it happen. That's how I would have done it in 50 other timelines. But because I read that comment, there's one timeline compromised. And even for me, that's too many.
Yeah,
I don't want to compromise anything.
Because the creative vision around what you want to do is so precious.
Exactly. It's not like I'm taking customer feedback. It's some guy just not liking my existence for no reason.
We're gonna pull one from level 3. So you do the honors. And if you don't like the card, you're gonna pull a different. We're gonna end on this.
Is level 3 the best one?
It's the deepest one.
Oh, yeah.
Let's see what it is.
Ooh, what do you think my weakness is?
I don't think it's a weakness per se.
Oh, come on. You gotta...
No, I'm being honest.
Okay.
But what I really appreciate, right? We've discussed this balance between creativity and competition, between finding the overlap between luck and opportunity, between giving lots of f***s but not caring too much about outcome.
Yeah.
When I've spoken with you today, I feel there's such a strong common theme on you finding these contradictions and somehow you'll hold them within yourself, and that's your strength. And I don't know if I've heard awareness of that. Maybe if I had to choose your weaknesses, did you know you were doing this, Christian?
I will be honest. I'm very aware of that, and I'm very mindful of all these things. And to play onto that, I do find weakness in, I don't know why I keep holding on to all these. Like, I know I do. I know I try to go out of my way to find these contradictions and things. But does that come from a place of insecurity? Do I feel the need to point out these perspectives that only I have or whatever? Do I have to feel the need?
The uniqueness around.
Yes.
Is that a bad thing?
I think there's time and place, though.
See, I think a reframing of a time and place, every min-max trait you have, sometimes it's helpful, sometimes it doesn't. So maybe sometimes it does get in the way. But I think sometimes to want to make anything new in this world and actually turn it to something real, right? Which is yet another contradiction you pointed out between having the idea and the discipline to execute on it. You have to kind of believe that, hey, maybe I can be kind of cool.
Yeah, no, first of all, I do believe that.
Yeah.
I always wake up thinking, man, I'm fucking, like the whole, you ever get that question where it's like, do you feel like you're superior to other people?
I have.
I always, obviously, I'm going to give a tactful answer. But in my head, I'm like,
You're like, yes.
I'm so much cooler.
You know what's so funny? I alternate historically between thinking I'm better and thinking I'm worse.
You know, maybe in the end, it evens out.
Yeah, so not that I'm like, well, I'm just the same because I'm better and worse. But yeah, I think you do have that awareness. I just wasn't hearing. Maybe there's also reluctance to share this initially. Because you're right, a lot of people wouldn't get it.
Yeah.
But again, so many contradictory pieces of what you're saying. Like, you sitting between all of them.
Yeah.
All right, now I'll pull a question for you. In one word, how would you describe our conversation?
One word. Can I use a term?
Absolutely.
Min-max.
Oh my God.
This was a very min-max conversation. There was a point where we were talking about like we were talking about like, oh my God, so like, where does all this come from? Like, what about your life made you the way you are? It gets so deep. I feel like there was a lot of dynamics here. Well, how would you describe it?
I'm going to use a phrase.
Yeah.
Understanding you helps me understand myself more too. Because I've also felt that weird tension between creativity and competition.
Yeah.
Between wanting to win, not getting too fixated, between the ideation and the discipline, between the luck and the opportunity, and how you feel good about that. Yeah, and I think in a weird way, seeing a lot of that in you helps me make more sense of myself. Right? And even the point of why are we even talking right now? It's because we're sort of sitting in the intersection of different worlds.
Yeah.
I think that's what I picked up in the very beginning when I was like, wow, like you have your together. It was more just you're creative, but you're also business focused. Yet another dichotomy of two different sides. And I think that's what lends itself to a min-max conversation. Because I was almost like, the more I dig in with you, the more I learn about myself. And so there's almost like, let me poke in different areas of your life because I don't know what I'm going to find.
I like that. I feel like I feel the same way with talking to you about how you run Karat. Even though it's money, which historically has been very objective and straightforward and by the book, the approach you're taking is very creative and alternative, you know? Like, I always appreciated, I remember like even before meeting you, but just hearing about Karat, I think at VidCon a couple years ago, I remember thinking like, this is such a good niche. Like it's such a good target audience. Cause I think about my friends around me and like, these guys don't know what they're doing. I had a friend like who's like, I'm not going to say his name, but he's one of the biggest in his field, like multi-millionaire, very young, called me and go, how do you do taxes? And I'm like, yo. And he's going to have to learn, obviously, but you being able to facilitate these resources for creators, I'm like, that's so smart. This space needed that, you know? And even though it's a company founded in finance, and it's like, at the end of the day, you know, there's a lot of creativity there. There's not, it's like coming up with a banger title and thumbnail, but it's a line of credit for creators, you know?
It's all about finding the overlap. That's why when you describe yourself trying to arbitrage or, hey, I'm going to win with Ribbon and Top Link because no one else is doing that yet. It resonates with me because, yeah, I don't just want to win. I want to win my way.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I didn't want to just go into Wall Street and work at investment bank.
Yeah.
I wanted to do it through this angle instead.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, man. Yeah, this is great.
This is good.
Yeah, come here. Give me a hug. Give me a hug.
Yeah, that was
We
good.
got some banger.
We got some bangers. We got some bangers.
Yeah, y'all.